Every time I see the Israel Appreciation Day information, it just strikes me about how important it is. Some of the things that are so important is, where we are with our values and our beliefs, with the life issue, but also the relationship with Israel and peace in the world, and how we can stand with our friend, the only true democracy in that part of the world. So
that's right.
That's really important. It was great information from Mary. I think some of the things that they're doing there in the relationship between Planned Parenthood and eugenics, and we didn't talk very much about the fact that a lot of the Planned Parenthoods are in our poorest areas, and that they actually target the minority folks in the inner cities and those kind of things where they build their facilities and spend a lot of their money trying to push abortions in some of the communities that need help more than they need abortions.
Well, and I was very surprised to hear her say that they are spending $40 million or whatever it was to advertise in the Northeast. I'm like, we must have the most Planned Parenthoods per capita. There's one in like every town in Vermont. Do we really need to be advertised to? I don't think so.
Well, and I also wonder, because Vermont's laws are so liberal and the left is forcing whether, there's abortion tourism that's going on.
Oh.
I can't think of anything sadder than that,
That's about the saddest thing, yeah. That is really interesting. That's a really interesting question. There was some other stuff she said. There was something else I was trying to bring back to mind that was really surprising to me. I just here's the thing, and this is what I'm really curious about. Pro-life people, because I've worked with Mary a little bit. I've had her on my show. I know a little bit about what they do, but less abortions are happening in places in the South where there's more Jesus. Now, I'm not saying religious people or people of faith are more likely to believe that a baby is a human being. But I feel like we probably kind of are more likely to believe a baby is a human being if we are, believe in Jesus or we follow Jesus. Am I crazy? Do you think, like, if we just had a big missionary trip come from the South to the Northeast, maybe, we could fix some things.
Well, I personally, in my personal story, as I was pro-life long before I was a regular churchgoer and a strong believer. I've always been a believer, obviously. But I think there's a large group of secular people out there that realize taking the life of a child is not a religious thing. It's pretty basic that you just don't kill. And it's either a child or it's not. And if it's a child, how can we possibly think of taking its life? So, it's interesting. I was at a picnic with Mary this past weekend, and we celebrated the birthdays of all the babies that were born in the last 2 years that would not have made it had not been for the Dobbs decision. But I want to bring on our next guest. And it's a little bit different in New Hampshire, but it's an ongoing challenge. Some of the fights that are going on in their legislature are very upfront and forward. Their governor considers himself pro-choice, but is not come out with, he supported 24 weeks, and we'll get into more of that with Jason, which is different from the Vermont governor. So I want to bring on Jason Hennessey from New Hampshire Right to Life. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in New Hampshire, what's making a difference over there, how New Hampshire Right to Life is engaged in the fight and making a difference every day over there. So welcome to the show, Jason. Tell us a little bit about, some of the work that you're doing in New Hampshire and how it's making a difference.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Jay and Ericka. It's an honor to be joining you and your listeners. Yeah. So here in New Hampshire, we have kind of the distinction of being a purple state. So I talk to pro-life advocates like Mary in Vermont and down in Massachusetts, and it's a very different story. Here in New Hampshire, we actually have a chance of protecting babies and moms from abortion. And so in the last 2 years, it's actually been a battle. 2 years ago, we passed what's called the Fetal Life Protection Act. Actually, it's 2021. And that was the first protection New Hampshire had in, I think, since Roe v. Wade. So we had repealed all of our pro-life laws in like the 90s that were overridden by Roe v. Wade. And so in 2021, under Roe, we passed this, and it protects children at 24 weeks or 6 months. And it's amongst the most moderate protections. I think at the time when it passed, something like 45 states had laws at that level or earlier. And so this is a protection for moms because late-term abortions are very risky.
Yeah.
And it has exceptions for the health of the mom and for fetal anomalies.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Jason, because I just saw an WMUR story recently, and a lot of the Annie Kuster, however she pronounces her name over there, and a lot of the liberal Democrats are out there saying abortions are completely banned in New Hampshire, that you can't have an abortion, and that, there's these far right-wing aggressive religious fanatics are stopping a woman from having an abortion. That seems a little contrary to what you're telling me, that there's a 24-week restriction. How do those two things play out?
Well, Jay, have you ever heard that phrase? It's hard to understand something when your paycheck depends on not understanding it.
Whoa.
So if you look at who funds the Democrats here, like take a look at 2016, for instance, Maggie Hassan versus Kelly Ayotte for a U.S. Senate seat. The abortion lobby funded Maggie Hassan for over $5 million. I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, $5 million is a lot of money. And you wonder why they're so out there and so extreme, even fighting a 6-month protection that barely affects anybody.
Yeah,
it's because they have to give lip service to their funders.
That's right.
Yeah, I think one of the show, Abby Johnson said it best, and I just drew a blank as the name of the movie that she was in. That they're a nonprofit, and nonprofit is a tax status, not a way a business is done. And the amount of money that they put into campaigns is an investment that they're looking for a return on investment, just like any other for-profit business would be doing. And $5 million, you may be up against it again with at least that kind of money, because we talked about earlier that, the $40 million that Planned Parenthood is putting into lobbying and advertising in New York and New Hampshire and in this region is going to be very hard to fight against when they're telling lies like, you cannot get an abortion in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean, just like that Senate race, it's an investment for them. If you look at the same organization, I overheard you and Mary talking earlier, that same Planned Parenthood organization that they have, we also have. And they spend over $2 million a year just on lobbying. That's a huge amount of money. And we actually, so you were talking about how their government funds them. We actually cut their funding off 2 years ago. And the interesting thing is from their Title 10 subsidies. And the interesting thing is, guess how many Planned Parenthoods closed as a result of that? So it was millions of dollars a year. Guess how many closed?
Zero.
Well, actually 6.
Oh.
So 6 Planned Parenthoods closed. Guess how many in New Hampshire?
How many?
1. So what that tells me is that most of that money was actually being used to subsidize non-New Hampshire places.
Well, and this is one of the things that always drives me insane, Jason, is, I'm an accountant by trade. Okay. So money is fungible. And I have nonprofit clients, right? And a lot of those nonprofit clients have for-profit subsidiaries so that they can do certain works and things and that. And if you donate to a lot of times people are donating to the political action fund of Planned Parenthood, not Planned Parenthood. So it's like you're donating money thinking that you're doing something, or you're donating money to Planned Parenthood. They can just divert their other resources towards towards campaigns, towards advertising, rather than actually giving services.
Right.
And then they just use the donations for the services. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's obvious that those Title X funds are extremely profitable. I mean, if they had to close 5 out-of-state centers when we cut off their Title X funds, which are supposed to be fee for service, they're getting reimbursed for a pregnancy test or something. Obviously the reimbursement amount is higher than is more than it costs.
Exactly. Oh my God. So then. That just makes it even more stupid. So that's like proof, basically. It's proof that they're taking money that they get from the government toward these things, even though they're not supposed to.
Yep. And those 5 centers, Jay, you can thank us that those were in Vermont.
Yes.
The other 5.
Yes. which was very, very good. I don't know how much it limited, the number of abortions in Vermont, but if you were able to save one child, 5 children, whatever it is, the investment is worth it. And to invest it in supporting some of the pregnancy centers that are in New Hampshire, I know you're doing a lot of work with the pregnancy centers because you know how important it is to empower women and to make a difference in giving them the assets and the products and the support, both financially and emotional support. That it's a tough decision for women to have a child, especially when the outside noise is so loud. And sometimes they want to make it so that the easy decision is to have an abortion when it should be supported and there needs to be resources there. Tell me a little bit about, do you have a network in New Hampshire of pregnancy health centers? How does that work? Are they getting support? Tell me a little bit about that and what you're doing.
So Jay, I think you hit the nail on the head there. So there's a study that I saw recently that says that only 1/3 of women who get abortions wanted the abortion.
Wow.
And so what that tells me is that anything we can do to step up support and empowering women to choose life is going to have a huge impact, not just for the child, but for the mom too, because a lot of women end up regretting their abortions for years. And so if we can help prevent these unwanted abortions, that's a huge step. And we have 15 pregnancy centers here. And as far as I know, they basically take no tax money. I think one gets like $1,000 or something, but for the most part, they are completely tax money free. It's 100% free to the clients. And what they do is they provide strollers and diapers and formula and baby clothes and parenting classes, and some even help with housing. These centers are there to empower women. And it's especially troubling to me that now we have some Democratic leaders here in New Hampshire who are coming after them and saying, we want to regulate them, we want to shut them down.
Yeah.
Where,
I
just can't understand that.
Yeah, we hear it all the time. And I don't know how many times I hear, unwanted pregnancies and unwanted children and all those kind of things. But for you to bring up the fact of how many are unwanted abortions, I think that is something that we need to talk about. And I don't hear it. Go ahead, Ericka.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jay. That is, think about that. Think about that. If there are 1 million abortions a year, that means 600,000 children could have been born if the mom felt like she had the support that she needed. That is the entire state of Vermont.
Wow. Wow.
I can't even wrap my brain around that number. And then thinking about, when we were talking to Mary, we were talking about the connection to Margaret Sanger. I feel like Black people wouldn't be a minority anymore, right? Because we know, like, in a lot of places, Jay, you were saying they're putting Planned Parenthoods in minority neighborhoods. Think about how many, oh my God, it's like, oh my God, they're like white supremacists. I hate to say that, but I mean, they were back in the day. I can't even. I'm beside myself right now. I'm sorry, you guys. This is just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a racial component there, Ericka. I think a Black child is 4 times as likely to get aborted as a white child. Wow. And if you look at Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger's first project, it literally was targeting Black families to make sure there were less Black people.
So crazy.
I mean, it's crazy that it's continuing. I mean, it's still there.
And then they won't admit it. Like, that is your legacy. That is your legacy. Just cop to it. Like, I want to know I want to hear the justification from an abortion provider that says, well, yeah, we know we started as a eugenics movement and we wanted to get rid of all the Browns and whatever, but how do they justify it now? Oh, yes, it was intended to get rid of people. It was intended to be population control, but it's not that now. This is what it is. Has anybody ever heard?
Yeah, it's undesirables. And I think that's one of that. They are the ones that get the real pro-choice is it's Planned Parenthood that's choosing who should live and who should die by how they invest their money and where they put their assets. So the only real choice out there in most cases is by Planned Parenthood. And I think what Jason is talking about with the pregnancy health centers is that maybe we're finally getting to the point where we're giving women truly a choice. And if you want to call yourself pro-choice, you cannot justify it without giving women the real opportunity, empower them, and put them in a position where they can make a true choice.
So, Jason, forgive me if I missed it, but so New Hampshire actually put in a law protecting the unborn over 6 months. Now, does New Hampshire have any legislation trying to shut down pregnancy resource centers?
Well, thankfully, we have not. I suspect that the other side knows that we're not Massachusetts and Vermont. They can't just, in our purple state, they can't just sneak that through in the middle of the night without anybody noticing.
Yeah.
But the rhetoric has been going higher, and now we have a congressional candidate, a very prominent one, who is saying she wants to shut down pregnancy centers. So it's coming out of the back room, and it's hard for me to understand why you would want to do this unless it's market protection for the abortion providers.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the only thing that really makes sense.
Or malevolent, or you're just an evil, awful person. I mean, what else would it be? Who says we don't want women and families to have support and care? No, yeah, you know what? If you want to have your baby, cool. Just nobody's going to help you, and you're on your own.
Yeah. The other thing, also unlike Vermont, where they have a supermajority in the legislature, and sometimes people in Vermont are saying, well, my vote really doesn't matter, my vote doesn't really count. It's not that way in New Hampshire. I mean, the House is very likely vulnerable to being swung back to control by the liberals. So I think if you can give us a little understanding of how important a pro-life, pro-woman support is when you go out and vote, give us a little bit of background on that, Jason, as to how important it is for pro-lifers to get out and vote and really make a difference.
Oh yeah, Jay. I mean, so there are really two fronts on advocating for empowering moms and protecting their children, and one of the big ones is the legislature. We have in New Hampshire, we have I think it's the second largest legislature in the country. We have 400 reps. And we have 24 senators, and if we go blue, I imagine in November, that we will see laws limiting pregnancy centers, just like Vermont has. And so it's very important if you want not just to keep the status quo, but if you want to keep this ability to have charities even helping moms who are pregnant, we need to get out there and vote for pro-life candidates. So. We have New Hampshire Right to Life has a political action committee. We'll be publishing a voter guide for where the candidates stand. But it's so important that you help out your local candidates. They need these state reps. They're a lot of them. There's 400 of them, right? So they need all the help they can get.
Yeah. That's right, you guys. If you're in New Hampshire and you're watching, you better be out there. Find somebody to vote. Find your rep candidate that doesn't suck and vote and volunteer for them.
Exactly.
And the elections with so few people that actually vote in the elections in New Hampshire because the districts are so small, 5 votes, 10 votes, your friends, your neighbors, your family members, you need to encourage them to go out and vote for life.
Oh,
And
absolutely, Jay. Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
life, but give women a real choice. Put them in a position where they can make a decision that's right for them. And I think we're running out of time. But I want to give people an opportunity to be able to contact you, Jason, and your organization, New Hampshire Right to Life. Tell us a little bit about how they can do that, how they can make a difference.
Sure, would love to. So our website is nhrtl.org, the acronym for New Hampshire Right to Life.org. And we would love to hear from you. You can get on our mailing list. We try to keep people up to date with what's going on. And really just being active and sharing your passion and for protecting children and empowering moms really is. We also have to change the culture, and that's a big part of it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I think that's one of the things that we want to talk about is that a lot of times in Vermont it's tough with legislation, but you can still give people an opportunity and do the right thing. And in New Hampshire, it's both, where you can be actively involved in making a difference politically that empowers women, but you can also let people know your feelings and how important it is to have the sanctity of life. This has been great, Jason. Greatly appreciate you coming on the show. I think we've learned a lot. And just please keep up the good work, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, Ed. It was honored to get to spend some time with you guys.
Yes, thank you, Jason. And we want to say thank you to our supporters over at ASIC, Defenders of American Freedom. Let's hear what they've got to say.